What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Cult of Recreationalism Podcast. Let me start that over again. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Cult of Recreationalism Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Lake, and today on the show, we have three-time New York Times best-selling author, Mike Ritland.
Goldie Wilson. I like the sound of that.
3 times.
You know, that's from it. 3 times. You
Help
don't
me.
watch movies growing up?
I mean, I'm going to say, oh, yeah.
Have you seen Back to the Future?
Of course.
And you didn't know that was from that?
No.
Yeah,
Are you talking original Back to the Future? Like,
yeah, the OG fucking. He goes back to 1955.
yeah.
He goes into the little diner, and there's this old white guy that owns it, and there's this younger white guy sweeping the floor.
Yeah.
He says Goldie Wilson. He's like, I'm to run for mayor. He's like, yeah, sure, fucking will be a mayor. Sure thing, buddy. And then he goes, Goldie Wilson. I like the sound of that.
And didn't Michael J. Fox say something to him like, you're going to be mayor?
Yeah.
There we go. Because I think in the future he was actually
He knew that guy was like, the
He
fucking
knew.
mayor.
Inside track.
See
He
how,
could have made an absolute fortune in the stock market if he just played his cards differently.
well, Biff did that in number 2. He bought the sports almanac and then came back and.
That's right. That's right.
So basically, Biff can. That's what you're talking about.
I just suggested that Michael could have been Biff. Not that that was going to be my game. You know, it's just an idea. So, folks, a few things about Mike. Mike is originally from Iowa, Waterloo, Iowa.
Yeah.
Served 12 years as a U.S. Navy SEAL. Served with none other than Glen BUB Doherty, something we're going to talk about a little bit today. I think I already mentioned 3 New York Times best-selling books. He's a public speaker. He's the founder of the Warrior Dog Foundation and the host of an incredibly popular podcast, The Mic Drop. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Sorry I'm late.
That's all right. These things happen. Look, this is a lot more fun than doing an Instagram Live, which basically serves just those group of people that watch in real time. Because now, should we choose to, we can steer a bunch of people into chit-chatting here. That being said, I kind of wanted to set the stage. Obviously, we're here. We're going to talk a little bit about service. We've done this once before where we were talking about some old Glen stories and having a fun time with that. But I want to get into how someone goes from Waterloo, Iowa, to becoming a Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I'm sure you've talked about this before, but like just that jump seems like a pretty monumental.
Person that ever asked me that, and not really. Yeah. So there's a couple of things, I guess, that were, if you want to call it fate, whatever, just things that had to have happened that maybe weren't expected or that you wouldn't think would kind of lead me in that path, I guess. Iowa was a huge wrestling state, and especially back then in the 80s and 90s. That was when the Iowa Hawkeyes were kind of at the height of their wrestling dynasty, kind of stays at now. But and so kind of everybody wrestled, my dad included, and but it beat the shit out of his knees and hips so bad that as we were growing up, he was doing a lot of physical rehab in swimming pools, and would drag us along. And so we ended up swimming a lot growing up. And that had a huge impact on steering me into the Navy versus any of the other special operations, as well as my mom, had some partner in the Army Special Operations. Her dad was in the Navy. And so, she was like, if you want to go in the military, go in the Navy. Grandpa was in the Navy, whatever. But
Maybe you were always going, like, coming into your teenage years, coming up, you're like, this is where I'm tracking.
Yeah, I mean, getting into high school, I for sure did. But there's kind of a weird irony in that during the Gulf War, I was in junior high, and I remember watching the bombing campaign, that first, 24 hours or so. I was actually fucking terrified of the thought of having to go to war, or even being in the military. It's like, holy shit, I never have to do that, kind of thing. 2-3 years later, like, you hit puberty and all of a sudden you enough state control of your brain, and you're like, fuck yeah, I want to be that shit. It's just as a weird, like two polar opposites, just a couple of years apart. But one of the catalysts was this popular mechanics article that I read. It was like this big, like 12-page spread on naval special warfare, and I had never heard of it at the time, and that was the first time I'd ever even realized that facility were a thing. And I was just fascinated by two things. One, that it was like super elite. There was a tagline in there that's fairly commonly referenced, which is, that BUBS is the most difficult training that the U.S. military has to offer. And, as any young man is like, well, I want to do the hardest. If that's the hardest, that's what I want to do. Just kind of an ego thing. To say that it's harder than any of the other ones, it's kind of subjective, but it is the longest pipeline by quite a bit. So, I would stand to reason that it probably is, just from that standpoint, and attrition rate, et cetera. But so that was kind of step two, and then watching the movie Navy SEAL Cherishing, reading the Dick Marcinko books, and a few other ones. James Patches Watson was a teen guy in Vietnam, wrote a book named called Point Man, that was really good. And even like the Carlos Hathcock sniper book, even though he was a Marine, it's a lot of cool Vietnam sniper stories, and just kind of all funneled me into that.
What's interesting about being in the pool, like, you had a leg up on a ton of folks because you were literally in the water all the time, and then having your mom on the other side be like, oh, you want to join special forces, you can just skip that Air Force stuff right away in the Army and just brush that off, and you're not even going to consider being a Marine, but Navy.
Yeah. I mean, so that's what I mean. It's kind of strange how several things, I don't know that I'd say had to have taken place, but a high probability that they would have had to have taken place for me to end up there. Any one of them not being present, I may not have wound up there. So
yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. That's interesting. So it's funny because I remember in 1990, like when we declared war, what it was like Christmas, it was wintertime, going into the first roll into Iraq. I was with Glenn, and I remember being at the Alta Lodge. We were teenagers ski bumming, and it was our first exposure to, really war, because like we had the Falklands, but we were like, in middle school or whatever when that happened. That didn't really count. It was over in about 13 minutes. But I remember watching George Bush Sr. like giving that big declaration, and then like the video footage of it coming out or whatever we could see on TV, and we're just like, oh shit. Oh, this is real. And like asking questions like, I wonder if we're going to get drafted.
Yeah.
Like,
and the same thing. I was like, holy shit, what if the draft, I'm only a few years away from it. But I also think historically it was the first time where there was kind of real-time war footage, because even in Vietnam it was delayed quite a bit and edited. It was like they had hard camera reels that they were bringing back, and so now you've got satellite connectivity, and it's like this is happening as we speak. Like you're watching this happening live. It was the first time really in history that people witnessed that, and I think that added an element of realism, and for me at that time, or at that age, added an element of fear to it, because I was just like, holy shit, this is happening right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's too wild. So
and then flip forward. Yeah, and then get into high school, and you're like, all right, it's on now.
Yeah, it was weird. Yeah, just a couple of years later, I read the article. I had hit a growth spurt and had a deeper voice, and it was just like, now all of a sudden I had a totally different fucking perspective on life, and not to drag dogs into everything, but there's a big parallel there too, in that people a lot of times will try to do serious dog work with dogs when they're still too young. And rather than saying, rather than end up screwing the dog up because they put too much pressure on them at too early an age. Because dogs grow fast. At a year old, most of the time they're physically about as big as they're going to get, or pretty close. They may fill out a little bit more, but
right.
But they're still, mentally very immature and young, and I've seen that. I've even made that mistake before of, a big dog at 14 months that just mentally was not mature physically. It was like a fucking monster, and and it just put too much pressure on him and ended up fucking ruining it. So I mean, he learned not, didn't take his life or whatever. It just made
Yeah,
it
but set him back
well, yeah, man.
training wise.
It made him too sketched out in most types of scenarios. I never got him to recover. So I ended up just giving him to a friend that in the same town, and he just had him as a farm dog, and he turned out great for that. But yeah, it's just kind of a shitty deal. But anyway, more humans and dogs have a lot of parallels.
Yeah. So not to jump around, but were you working with dogs before joining the Navy? Because I thought it came the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, I would say not like officially or formally. I mean, I was big into dogs. I had some friends of mine growing up that their dads were into duck hunting pretty heavy, and so they had kind of a small bird dog kennel. A few different guys were pretty into it, so I had some exposure to working dog training from that aspect, and we had a dog that I was really close with, that just kind of bonded with, and every day after school I'd come home and walk him for like 2 hours, and on weekends and take him, especially like in the winter time, I'd take him over to this golf course that was near our house and spend like all day Saturday, running around in the snow and frozen ponds with this dog, just having fun. And yeah, I just thought like that, a lot of young boys, especially I think, are dog guys or dog kids growing up and they're into it. But I was for sure um, a lot of what like a normal kid might be. But,
Yeah, it wasn't just like, hey, I want like my 8-year-old son is dying to have a dog. He knows
yeah,
nothing about the responsibility or how to work with it and train it. And this is just to be a neighborhood dog. This isn't anything special. We're not talking about a hunting dog or a service animal. But then you get up to those different tasks, and yeah, there's a whole layer of training there. I didn't know that you had that before you went into the Navy because part of
yeah.
it, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had the bug long before then, and I do think to your mentioning of your son on one, we were the same way, and even at 7, 8 years old, I would begging my parents for a dog, and they never would do it. They eventually did, but I think making us wait several years and like making us like kind of almost testing, like, you really want a dog, or is this just like an impulse thing? Like, because there's a cool one down the street, or your friend had one and they had fun with it at a sleepover or whatever. And just year after year after year, just kept fucking begging them, and finally they let us had one. So it was like this huge build up, years of wanting one, and then finally getting one. I think really helped cement the dedication and commitment to it. Plus, at that point I was 11 or 12 instead of 7 or 8, and
yeah, it makes a difference.
yeah, I was ready for the commitment and took it very seriously. And for me, I always enjoyed it though. It's one thing, like even if it was picking up dog shit, or taking him for walks because he needs one. Like I loved it. Like I would take him for way more walks than was asked of me, and
Yeah.
did a lot of things with him, way more than just the standard. Like, here's the bare minimum you have to do to earn, being able to have a dog. Because I enjoyed all of it. But yeah, so and then obviously, once I came in and saw military work, I was doing what I did, and I was hooked.
Sounds funny. So you graduate high school and you go right into the Navy basic training,
Yeah.
right? You didn't skip. You went right on in.
Well, yeah, so when I graduated high school, I was only 17. So I actually had to wait. I did the delayed entry program and joined like in March or April of my senior year. But I had to wait until the end of summer to turn 18, and then right after I turned 18, I went to boot camp like 2 weeks later. And so yeah, I mean, straight in, right at 18 years old, and I was at 18. So it's a pretty steep ramp up.
Yeah. I mean, did you and just prepping wise beforehand?
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
before you
so
went into basic training, was it like, I'm going to do a lot of running and push-ups? Or, I mean, there weren't any manuals or YouTube videos back then.
not really, but there were a couple of VHS tapes. A team guy named CJ Karachi, that had these like Navy SEAL workouts. They weren't Bud's Prep, but they were just like, kind of a standard calisthenic, body weight type of workout
All right.
that was common in the SEAL teams at that time. And so I bought those,
We're
and I
talking
will say,
VHS tapes, right?
what's that?
We're talking VHS tapes or
VHS.
DVD.
VHS or DVD, it's just then. So yeah, VHS tape, and I will say though, to work out for a kick in the nuts. Now I was in pretty good shape. Swimming. I swam year round from the time I was like 5 until I did take a couple of years off from junior high because I got a little burnout. But then back in high school, I swam, during the swim season, and then swam for a USS club off season to stay in decent shape. And I,
Yep.
lifted and I ran, did a couple of years cross country, and I played, football, baseball, basketball, tag at school. Like growing up, I played every fucking sport you could most years, and just was always outside running around, staying super active. So, um, being in at least decent shape, wasn't super difficult for me. I actually had more trouble kind of putting weight on. I mean, my first Navy ID, I weighed 147, and I'm the same height. I was the same height I am now, So, yeah, I was like 140 when I joined, and I actually gained weight in boot camp, which most people don't. But I was just always rail thin, and it took, I mean, even into my 20s, mid 20s, man, I didn't break 200 pounds until I was in my mid 30s. It just super laid physically. Like I couldn't grow a beard, I couldn't put weight on. Even the whole time I was in the Navy, because I got out at 30. But from 18 to 30, that whole 12 years, like it was
Yeah.
really difficult for me to put and keep any kind of weight on.
Well,
Which was nice in some ways, in that extra weight in the SEAL teams isn't really a good thing. You're doing a lot of moving your own body weight around, climbing ladders, throwing gear on, and hiking up fucking mountains. So being a big, jacked, muscly, steak neck ninja, there are guys that pull it off and can do it, but
yeah.
it doesn't. A lot of extra weight doesn't help you any. So and
That's
you
interesting
mentioned,
though, because like I associate you like the last, whatever, I've known you for about 15 years. And, going back to like 08, 09, like, and I associate you more like, I guess you're right. When I look back at that, I'm like, yeah, you were
yeah,
thinner, but like, you were still jack and steel and running around a bunch. So I think the running body weight, that all makes sense. So CJ Karachi workouts combined with pool time, combined with running cross country and playing all the sports, like you kind of had a really good baseline. It's funny because I was going to ask you, like, what advice would you want to give someone,
yeah.
young kid getting ready to go in? Like it's a
Yeah.
layup question, but like you're kind of answering it.
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, with no resources, that's about as good as of a prep as I think you could probably organize. Nowadays, though, I mean, with the internet and Instagram and just there's a number of dudes that kind of specialize in, special operations prep courses. And I think that
We
they're
know a few.
what's that?
I say we know a few.
Yeah, I mean, Stu Smith, your buddy Mark out there. There's another guy, Jason Sweet, he's an Air Force PJ guy that has a group down in Florida that does the same kind of stuff. And those are all great too. I think they do some kind of customized, workout plans for you and stuff like that. But to me, there's kind of two different things at play though. The SEAL teams, but, and in general, the mentality that they're looking for is somebody that can overcome challenges and adversity. And to me, part of that is not really knowing what the fuck you're getting yourself into, and not being overly prepared.
Mhm.
Because the reality of it is that you're going to run into occurrences all the time in the SEAL teams that you weren't prepared for. And you've got to be able to adapt, overcome, figure it out, and ultimately succeed. And, to me, there's something to be said about that that path of being like, fuck, I don't really know what to expect. I'm going to get myself in as good a shape as I can to the best of how I know how to do it. And I'm just going to show up and slap my nuts on the counter and hope that I made it. Whereas, by over engineering the entire thing and gaming and knowing exactly every day of what's going to happen. And I did all of this prep work to get ready so that it's not as challenging or whatever. I mean, it's still going to be a kick in the nuts. And of
Yeah.
course, I have some bias because well, that's how I did it. So that's the better way to do it.
But arguably, like there's an ignorance is bliss element that you can't
Like,
ignore. I mean,
I mean, I didn't, it's not like I knew nothing. I mean, I will say, reading Road Warrior by Vic Marcinko gives you a pretty good idea what you're getting into. It'll the box favorite shit out of you, honestly. Like when you read it, you're like, holy shit, we have to do what? So he gives you a pretty good glimpse of kind of what the kicking of that hornet's nest is going to be like when you show up. And it was pretty accurate. Reading that and going through training, I was like, yeah, there weren't any huge surprises, with one exception. The San Clemente in the last 5 weeks of training was way harder than I thought it would be.
Hmm.
And I think it does vary a fair bit class to class. It kind of depends on how big your class is and how you're doing, what time of year it is. And there are some factors that I think play a big role in that. But I was not expecting it to be as brutal as it was. To me, it was harder than Hell Week. That was my experience. I'm sure there's other people that it was the opposite. But
I think everyone has their own, like, again, civilian side here experience, right? Like working with Mark Devine on his SEAL Fit stuff. Like you get these 50-hour windows training a bunch of folks going through different evolutions. And you just, who knows what's going to set someone off, and they're going to have their low point, but it's coming. You know it's coming. And I don't think there's any real script to it. I think you can draw statistical conclusions around which ones are going to be the worst. Hell Week would be kind of a layup, but like you might have breezed through Hell Week and then you get to San Clemente and you're like, oh, mentally I'd shifted a gear that we were over the toughest hurdle, and now, oh no, I was totally wrong, and now I'm kind of fucked. I gotta back out of that.
Yeah, and to be fair, that could have been a gross miscalculation on my part of like having senioritis. Like, fuck, dude, we got a few weeks left. Like, it's gravy train. The fuck it is. Like, right up until the last second of training, like you're getting your balls kicked in over and over and over. So, very, very well could have been just, again, my miscalculation. But anyway, I guess my point in all of that was, I did feel like I was in pretty good shape. Navy boot camp is not challenging. If you're in the kind of shape to where you're preparing to go to SEAL training, Navy boot camp is not going to be a challenge. And I would say if you find yourself feeling challenged in Navy boot camp and you're trying to make it to BUD/S, you may want to rethink that.
Yeah. Or put in a lot of extra work. I mean, that was one of the takeaways from Glen. Again, that's like when he was going through it all as a ripe old man at, 24, 25. And I remember him coming home from basic and being like, yeah, I did a lot of extra work. Like we'd get done with our basic stuff and then I'd go and do, a bunch of push-up, squat, running, like, the stuff that we knew to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So, same here. There were a handful of us that all wanted to go to BUD/S, and so at the end of the day, we'd go off, into the back corner and do flutter kicks and push-ups and try to get extra work in. But
yeah, no, it makes sense. That's good advice. Like, hey, if you're struggling in basic, you gotta know you're going to be struggling infinitely harder once you get into BUD/S.
Yeah, and I think, one of the problems I think with the pipeline is that I don't think that the selection test does an adequate enough job of selecting guys that are cut out for the training. I think it's too easy, frankly. Is that because to me, like if you can pass that test to say like, okay, well, yeah, you're ready to go to BUD/S, I would say no. To me, like if you pass that test with flying colors, then yes. If you barely pass that test, kind of similarly, I would say you may want to rethink that. And another component that I do think is important enough to even bring up and keep droning on about is is one kind of simple factor of, especially now with the amount of information that's available, the kind of self-starter mentality is one of the biggest predictors of success in BUD/S that exists. And in that, it's if you show up to a SEAL recruiter and you say, hey, my name's Jim Bob and I want to be a SEAL, what do I need to do? If I'm that SEAL recruiter, I would say you should just turn around and fucking leave. Like if you haven't, like if you're not coming here and saying, here's my PST score, here's my ASVAB score, here's all the shit that I need, like I'm ready to go. I've already researched all that. I know what I need. Here's what I want to do. Can you fucking sign me up for a pipeline? I'm ready to go. Like if you're not that kind of kid that has already done all of that, that's done everything that you can do before you show up to say, hey, will you help me? Like that single fucking thing is so important. Like because I've known a number of recruiters, and it's a pretty recurring theme that all of them are like, the guys that show up that are like, hey, I don't want to be a SEAL, what do I need to do? None of them have made it. Like none of them.
Right. Well, you just touch on something so important, right? It's like, well, what do I need to do? You're asking, like, of course they're going to tell you some of the specifics, but if you haven't done everything you already know to do and exhausted those, like before you come in, like you just said, like literally, like, have you done a PST? Like, have you gone through that and like really like made sure that you're set?
Yeah, and I think that's pretty true in all of life is like, before you ask somebody for help, I don't give a shit what it's for, unless you have an arterial bleed on the side of the highway after an accident. Like, but I mean, generally speaking, like if you haven't done every fucking thing you can do on your own before you go ask somebody for help, you're wrong, and you're lazy, and so to me, again, it's like if you're that fucking lazy where you're just going to try to get spoon fed walking into a recruiter's office, don't waste your or his time, because that folks know what it's going to be.
Yeah, and they don't want to deal with that because then it's just more paperwork for someone who wasn't prepared for
Well,
it.
they
No,
do.
go over
This is
here.
one more person that they got in quota wise. So, that young kid, if he comes in and says, hey, I don't have a fucking clue what I'm doing and I, need a waiver for body fat percentage, come on in. We'll get you fucking signed up right now. They're still going to welcome you with open arms and tell you to sit down.
Beware the quota. Beware the quota.
Yeah.
And do your fucking work beforehand. Get prepped.
Yeah, 100%. They'll still sign you up because if you don't make it to BUD/S, you'll still fill a slot in the Navy. They're happy about that. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's not an easy contract to just get out of. Like, no, I don't like it today. I'm gonna just leave.
No, I mean, shy of trying to kill yourself in boot camp, you're not going to get out of it. And then you're going to end up in a fucking psych ward. If you're not, it's not going to be a better scenario. But
no. In fact, if you get to that point where you literally made it into the Navy and you're thinking about killing yourself, well, man, there's a whole bunch of missteps that happened probably years and years prior that we don't have time to unpack right here.
Yeah.
So you make it through BUD/S. You make it through San Clemente, your active duty. When do you meet Glen?
So I met Glen out at Nyland. He went through 4 classes ahead of me, but he was a corpsman, so he'd gone to 18 Delta. He had just finished, and he was doing corpsman support for my SQT class, or at that time it was still called STT. But so I mean, I'll never.
And for the laymen that don't know all these acronyms.
Yeah, so SEAL tactical training or SEAL qualification training. So after BUD/S, which is basic underwater demolition SEAL training, that's 6.5 months. Then you go through airborne, and then you go through this advanced training phase. It's about 4 more months that kind of bridges the gap between BUD/S, which is really a selection course, and jumping into a SEAL team where they need you to be caught up to the best of your ability. So SQT, this advanced training, it's more of a gentleman's course in terms of instructors aren't treating you like you're a total piece of shit. They'll still mess with you a little bit, but it's much more like, hey, our job is like you've made the cut, you've proven to our community that you belong here. Now it's our job to get you from where you're at to as close as where you need to be. To jump into a SEAL platoon and not weigh those guys down. So
Yeah.
We're out at an island, which is Eastern California. It's out right on the border of Arizona and California, by Yuma, and it's just it's a horrible place, frankly. Um, we do a lot of land warfare stuff out there and desert warfare stuff, and so I'm in this advanced training class, driving out on this big truck with 30 dudes piled in the back of it in the middle of August or whatever, and we pull up in off of a siphon road and are getting ready to do some immediate action drills or some kind of land warfare shooting drills, and Glenn is laying on his back with his head up against the tire of a Humvee with a big fucking sombrero style hat, like sun hat, down over his eyes, reading a fucking book with his legs crossed. And I was like, who is this fucking moron? I was just like, what, did they let one of the environmentalists in and he's taking a fucking nap on the Humvee? Like, what's
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
Like throwing granola at him. I was like, who's this fucking rim job? And, but then, in true Glen fashion, he stands up and has a smile on his face, and 9 seconds later, you can't help it, just fucking love the guy. And I was like, dude, this guy's fucking awesome. Like, smile on his face, handshake, never met a stranger, starts cracking jokes, so just super personable. And yeah, I mean, that was the first time I ever met him, and never looked back after that. I mean, it just I know we've all said this a million times, but I'll say it again, that I've never met anybody that so many other people referred to him as their best friend, and I know you guys, if he had a best friend, it was you, but like a 1,000 fucking people out there like, oh yeah, Glenn, he's my fucking best friend. Like, no, he's not. He's just Glenn.
He's my best friend and this other guy's best friend. Wait a minute.
Yeah, so just such a fucking amazing guy, man. I lost a lot of friends over the years, and I think about all of them, but Glenn is just like, that hole is still just as big as the fucking day it happened,
It's interesting how that works. Like, it is interesting. Like, it's still there. Like, and it doesn't go anywhere. It's like, man, this wasn't supposed to happen. Like, you're supposed to be here. And
it is weird for sure, and I mean, it's like there's so many things I think about where I'm like, fuck, I wish he was here to share this with, or whatever. And it's like, it never goes away. That sting is every bit as painful as fucking the day it happened.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're sharing stuff with him, rolling it through your head, and then I always joke with folks like WWGD, like, what would Glenn do? And I'm like, ah, fuck. Well, I don't like the answer half the time because I'm like, God damn it, that's the harder thing to do. Let's go do it.
For sure, it's the right thing and the good thing, and that's what he was all about. But I am curious, how many times did you use the Glenn would blow me type of line early on after, like back home or whatever? So tell me you never used it.
It's not like he had to be dead for me to use that. Okay? Let's be clear.
Way before.
Listen, I'm just going to say, lady, I'm my best friend's Navy SEAL. Okay?
Yeah. He wants you to do this. You want this? I definitely want this.
But really, you want this.
Yeah. The most important thing is that you want this. So we can all agree that you want this.
So, first impressions, you meet this goddamn hippie with camouflage as a Navy SEAL with his fucking sombrero hat on, eating granola, reading a book. And you ended up in the same platoon. Like, you weren't in the same platoon when you first met, but you end up actually deploying together. Tell me how that all came about, because you guys.
Yeah. Well, so I will say Glenn, I think is one of, if not the most shining example of don't judge a book by its cover, because he's such a fucking nice guy, and he's friendly and he's charming, he's outgoing, he's extroverted, but not in like a holy fuck, what is this dude on? Like, it's not over the top, like he struck such a good balance of like making you feel comfortable and welcome, and just it's so easygoing without it being disingenuous, manufactured, over the top, or you can tell there's an ulterior motive, like you're just trying to be nice so that people will say, oh, that guy's a nice guy. Like, he just was genuine that way. But but I think in that, and especially my original kind of interpretation and how I viewed him was, not that he was a pussy, but that he was like this nice guy and he read a lot and, he followed the Grateful Dead and was a ski bum. And like, when you think like consummate fucking warrior with a mental and physical fucking prowess to them and a warrior spirit, where you're like, yeah, if I go to war, it's going to be with that guy. Like, at first glance, first impression, that's not what you would think of.
No, you just said ski bum, followed the Grateful Dead around.
Yeah,
Looks like a
like
hippie
did
lying around.
drugs,
Like
fucking
he's
partied all. Yeah, like man was just like he wasn't serious. Like I mean, he was always having a good time. Like there were times where he would get serious and he went to be serious, but even then, it's like he could still make the most out of everything and have a good time no matter what the fuck was going on. It was the life of the party and always cheered people up. And but then you get into a platoon and you start doing some pretty serious training and dangerous things and you start seeing sides of people where you're pushing the envelope in some of these environments and it really reveals the type of guy that everybody is. And I will say, I mean, generally speaking, anybody that's even at that position is going to be more of a warrior than the rest of the population by quite a bit. But obviously, even within the confines of a SEAL platoon, there are levels, orders of magnitude in terms of caliber of men, and very quickly I realized two things. One is that, don't judge that book by its cover because dude, Glenn was an absolute fucking monster when he needed to be, in terms of that like warrior spirit and like would fucking take, would give his life obviously, in the fight for whatever cause, we were fighting for without question, like without pause, without any hesitation and was just fucking fearless, and such an inspiration that way. Um, but also that that motherfucker was good at everything. It was like, again, to look at him, you wouldn't think he's in the best shape of the platoon. Not, I mean, not that he looked like a slouch, but like he was the best shooter. He was in the best shape. It was just like everything we did. It's like the first time he's doing something, he's doing it better than guys who have done 3 or 4 or 5 fucking deployments. And everybody's just looking around like, what the fuck, And I remember the first time we got hazed. I was actually gone for it, but I remember everybody telling the stories that this big fucking dude. You've done a couple of platoons, pretty salty guy, 60 gunner, just totally fucking jacked, a lot bigger than Bloom. And several of the other old guys go to haze all of them, and this guy grabs Glenn. Knows wrestler, a boxer, a scrapper. He's just a fucking feisty Irish, badass, and basically just fucking grabs this dude and like fucking, does a duck under and fucking gets around, gets him in a headlock and locks him up, and he's just like, motherfucker, just so you and I both know, like, I fucking own you right now. And he's like, yeah. And then he's like, okay. And he let him go and then let him haze him. But he's like, he got the best of this dude, twice his size, like multiple deployment fucking team guy. And Glenn fucking owned him and then was like, okay, like, I just want to hear you say, like, you're my fucking bitch right now. And if you say that, I'll let you go and I'll let you haze me. But,
yeah. Now go ahead. Hit me with a paddle, whatever the fuck you want to do, but I already own you.
Kind of let him do it, but yeah, and it's like, but it was like that with everything. It's like, no matter what we were doing, it was like that dude just fucking picked it up right now and was fucking good at it, and it was sickening, and it was frustrating. It was like, there's certain things guys are good at, and other things they have to work hard or whatever. And I'm not saying he didn't work hard because he worked his ass off, but it just seemed like
he made it look easy, but he put in the time. I mean, he put in the hours to train.
Yeah, I mean, he was a hard worker, but yeah. So, thanks back to your question. So, very, very quickly, we all kind of realized like he was, top notch fucking dude, and just was a huge asset. He was a very gifted corpsman also, and he was older than most of us new guys too, And
Well,
so there,
you had you beat by about 4 or 5 years, right?
I mean, he was 8 years older than me.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, but yeah, so there was a component of like this fatherly figure to him too, with advice and the fact that he was a coroner. It's like you hurt or sick. It's like you go to Glenn and he's that comforting like mother hen almost. It's
You
like
say that when he's like dropping IVs on everyone and dishing out penicillin,
yeah,
prescriptions, which was
well
not
yeah, I mean
uncommon back then.
no, and I will say like I mean he borderline saved my fucking life. Total like non-combat environment. We were in our first platoon, and Shane and I did a rock climbing trip to Red Rocks in Vegas. And on the way home, we drove through Long John Silver's on like the outskirts of town. It's like right before they close. The best time to buy seafood is in the desert and right before they close. And so, I get like fried clams, right? And like as soon as I start eating them, they're like not even warm. But I was just like, yeah, fuck it, whatever, and I eat the whole thing. And 6 hours later, by the time I get home, I'm like, man, my fucking stomach is not feeling great. And dude, I proceeded to get over the next like 5 days the sickest I've ever been in my fucking life. I don't know what was wrong with them or what it was, but I mean, dude, like I was living in Webb's fucking guest house in his backyard, which didn't have a kitchen. It was a bedroom with this tiny little shithole bathroom.
I'm sure he charged you top dollar for that
Oh
too.
yeah, for sure. 100% he did. I mean, he was making hand over fist with that place. He charged his girlfriend. He ended up becoming his wife at that place. But anyway, so I'm there, and it's like, it took everything I could do to crawl to the bathroom to throw up, and then I would be like face down on a tile in the bathroom, like arms around the toilet for an hour before I could get enough strength to crawl half-ass back to bed. And then, for 5 days I did that. I lost like 30 fucking pounds. But
Which you
after,
didn't have
after,
to lose.
no. And like after, a day and a half, then Glenn actually came out to check on me and brought IVs. And I mean, no shit. Like if he hadn't brought IVs and he came back every day, like twice a day, drove way the fuck out into the college area from Coronado to check on me, give me an IV, and make sure I was all right. Did it for 4 or 5 days in a row. And had he not done that, I mean, fuck, I don't know, bad legs. I was on death's door, and I couldn't hold any fluids down. Nobody else was checking on me, so I mean, that
It's
amount of
interesting, like what you just said. Like that was Glenn.
but that,
Like we
yeah,
had
it
this
was that.
local friend here in Encinitas, this woman named Christine Reed, and after Glenn died, I remember she like came up to me and started talking to me about Glenn. And I like Christine, I've known her for forever, and we all trained together at SEAL Fit and all that stuff. And she'd had like a pretty mangling shoulder surgery, and Glenn just out of nowhere, he can't do anything for her. Goes to the hospital, checks on her, like, hey, how are you doing? What can I do for you? Like, what do you need? Like, no one for that
Yeah,
entire community went and checked on her, and she's like, to this day, is still it's like, that
yeah,
was Glenn. Like, it had such a major impact
yeah,
on her life. But like, of course he did that for you. Of course he did. Like, he wouldn't know any other way except, hey, Mike didn't make it to work today. Oh yeah. Oh, he's sick. Well,
yeah.
fuck, I better go check on him, and I'm gonna bring my bag of goodies with me and give him an IV and make sure he's pulled it
Yeah,
back.
yeah. And he was just that guy, and he'd do it for anybody. And I think that's why, he made everybody feel like he was their best friend because he was that good at treating them so well.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the key part of that is why so many people, considered him their best friend is because of the way he treated them. There's
Yep.
just nothing like it.
No, I couldn't agree more. So you guys end up in the same platoon, like, over those couple of years. Was the USS Cole your first deployment together? What was your guys' first?
Yeah, that was our first one. So we did. It was really a world tour because we started. We flew to Hawaii, spent some time there, and flew to Kwajalein and Guam, and then ultimately to Hawaii. We were there for like a month, and then we rode a boat from Hawaii to Bahrain. When we were in Bahrain, that's when the cold happened. So we jump on the Taro, we go down sit on the coal for 2 months, then went from there to Dubai for like a month, and then to Thailand, to Hong Kong, back to Hawaii, and then home. So it was like we had this big fucking, world tour that was pretty cool that, that he and I were on together. And yeah, the coal was wild. I mean, it's kind of our first glimpse at Al-Qaeda and Bin Laden, prior to 9/11. It was kind of a window into their organization and what their intentions were. And yeah, it's pretty dicey, but yeah, it was a wild couple of months. Part of that then for sure.
I'll bet. Um, any you mentioned Thailand. You mentioned bounced around there. And any
Yeah.
odd stuff that happened with Glenn over there, or was it all just nope, early to bed and
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think we all know better than that. I will say, myself, Shane, and Van, our AOIC, we actually took a 6-hour cab ride. We pulled into Phuket, shifted, and so that was, like cockroaches scattering. Most of the platoon stayed in Phuket. The three of us took this long cab ride to Phi Phi Island and went rock climbing for like 4 days.
Oh, nice.
So I actually did, all of the stories I had for Glenn or from Glenn were kind of third hand. Because of course, right when we get back on the ship, we're over, except us. I mean, we didn't drink much. We, again, we rock climbing. But the very first thing was all those stories about crazy shit, and then one of them for sure was, when somebody seeing him on the back of a fucking moped with, like a tie hooker or something driving, and he's like hanging on, like just, it's like fucking Where's Waldo, it's like, yeah, so, yeah, man, he was that guy, but yeah, you'd have to ask, some of the other guys that stayed with him, because I know there were some crazy stories, but
Oh yeah. Well, I always understood it was actually Brandon on the back of the moped,
maybe it
and
was.
that Glenn had ditched him and kind of said, "Hey man, like you're warned."
Dude.
That's how I always understood it, was that Glenn was there to be like, "Hey man, I'm giving you a good option here,
Yeah,
and if you don't listen, I'm not going to force you off the moped. You're an adult, you're a grown ass man. You're going to make up your own mind, but you might want to check that package."
yeah, you're I'm sure you're right, but yeah, just it was still a cool trip, and then can't really share the story from Hong Kong, unfortunately. I'll share it with you. You probably have already heard it, but
We're good on that front. I think for this audience, I'd shift more to any moments, because I remember Glenn. Not, I'm sure there's more from when you guys were deployed and when you guys were working together. But I really loved how motivated he was to, and like was always backing you up when you were first getting out and going into dog work, and just
yeah,
like, I remember you sitting on our couch when we were roommates in like, '09, whatever, 2010, and you'd come into town with a new dog, and it was like his level of encouragement, and you guys would sit there for like a day and a half and just like full life catch up.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was awesome, and not a surprise, but classic Glenn, like just always rooting for you, and anything he can do to help, he would do it. And at that time, one of the things that still kind of haunts me a little bit to this day is, at that time he had done some of the GRS stuff, and
Yep.
when they were launching this new program with like a direct hire program, he actually asked me to go do it with him. He's like, "Hey, we're doing this pilot program. They're only doing like a handful of guys," and they asked me and a handful of other dudes to bring one guy with us to go through this course. And he's like, you do it with me. And I was like, man, I'd love to, but I just started this business. Like, I can't do 3 months gone and a month home. I was like, I got to be here, burning at both ends, totally funneled into this business where it's not going to work. No, I just can't do it right now. Uh, but I was like, you remember Ty? Like, the three of us, took a trip down to Mexico a couple of years ago, and I was working with Ty at the time as a boat instructor. So I actually introduced Ty and Glenn And I was like, hey, Ty is just getting around his feet and asked me if I knew of any work. Let me give you his number. I would bet he would go with you. Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, give me his number. So just like I connected those dots, and then
Yeah.
ended up dying in Benghazi. And of course, there's part of me that thinks like almost similar to like missing a flight that crashed. Like if I had said yes, would it have been Glenn and I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe. I mean, you never know. But
It'll scramble your brain, but you're right. You're absolutely right. Like you can't not go down those roads and have those
yeah,
thoughts of woulda,
yeah.
maybes.
Well, that and just it's like fuck. I introduced the two of them, and then they end up, for this job, and then that job they end up, and God's happens on it, So that's something that ever since then, I'm not going to say it, haunts me at night. I don't sleep over it, but it's absolutely still something that I think about regularly. That it's just kind of hard to fucking swallow. But
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say, look, they knew what they were getting themselves into, and you
yeah,
know that, but it doesn't
yeah,
change the fact that you did connect those dots, and
yeah,
you're going to feel that way. I mean, I could tell you a million ways over, nah, Mike, that doesn't make any sense. Like they were going to do what they were going to do. If Glenn hadn't called Ty, someone else was, and he was in that perfect position then to take on that job and do that work. So he was heading there one way or the other. You just happened to be the one to open the door.
yeah, and I know all that, which I think. There's the difference between it really gnawing at me and then becoming a problem versus not. But it's still something I do think about it. It's just kind of a shitty thing to consider and realize.
Yeah.
But that's life. But I also think to the losing friends thing that something I get asked a lot. Doing the podcast, and people writing in, people whether it's calls or whatever. Other guys that are like, hey, I just lost, one of my closest friends, whether it was a combat thing or a car accident, or, whatever, drug overdose. I had a real hard time with it. And, you have any advice? Like, I know you lost a lot of friends. For me, the answer has always been really simple. And it started because of Glenn and Ty, frankly, is that, I remember after it happened, and I mean, it rocked all of us. It still does to this day. But as soon as I started feeling kind of sorry for myself, and going down that dangerous road of finding a distraction, um, Glenn in particular, I thought about him, and to your point earlier, like what would Glenn do? And it was very, very apparent to me in thinking, a lot of people feel sorry for themselves. They do dumb shit and they kind of sulk and they let themselves go, treat their family like shit, and it's all because they're depressed because they lost somebody. And I wonder if one of was, or he's looking down, or with that motherfucker, maybe he's looking up. You know,
50-50 on that one.
that's the boss of the coin. Or from the side, fucking whatever. If he has the wherewithal, and if he was looking down, seeing me and any of us acting that way and feeling sorry and drinking and being a fucking turd, how would he feel about that? You know, and it's a little easy to answer is that he'd reach through the afterworld and he would slap the fuck out of you for doing that.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, well, there's your answer,
Yeah.
So like, be grateful that you still have this opportunity that your best friend now doesn't have. And instead of ruining that and pissing it away, take advantage and make that motherfucker proud by living every fucking day that you have that he doesn't to its
Yeah.
fullest in his honor. You
Well,
know, and that's it. Like that's all you need to think about. And so hold yourself accountable in the days where you start wavering, slap yourself and think like, dude, I owe it to that guy to
yeah.
fucking not do this and make him proud. And it's that's it.
Well, it's funny because like, TJ, my business partner, and I were like, when TJ and I connected and we're like, hey, we got this idea, and and I said, well, we got to call it Bubs. We got to call this nutrition brand Bubs. I mean, you were my first call.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, call Kate, call Barbara, the family, call Mike. And I remember, like, you and Shane and Clint were the three guys that I called that I knew the best. So I had your numbers, and it's like, hey guys, what do you think about this? And you were just like, you didn't mince words, as you never do. Glen would kick your ass if you don't do Bubs. You have to do this.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, I don't know a thing about this. With nutrition and putting powder in jars, I figure it out.
Last time I was moving powder, I ended up getting arrested for it.
I never got arrested.
Wow.
I never got arrested. As far as you know.
Yeah,
but yeah, like that was it. I was like, like, you can't not do this. Like, go take the swing. Go fucking go for it. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, Glen would want me to do it, so
that's great. So I've got actually, before I go into, I have a couple rapid fire questions for you, but before I go into those, any last stories about G that like kind of like jump out at you that you go, oh man, this one time, holy shit, that you're allowed to say, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think, ones that I didn't share the last time versus now, or what have you. I mean, it's hard to even kind of grasp that one because, it's like every memory I have of him is just so good. One that I haven't shared though is actually the last time that I saw him. I was out staying with him and his girlfriend at the time. And, we walked the boardwalk of where they lived. And he was like, hey, have you ever done yoga? I was like, fuck no. Keep in mind, this is like '09. I was like, no, I haven't done yoga. Have you? You fucking turd? And he's like, yeah, I do it all the time. I was like, dude, that's pretty gay. And he's like, shut up, come with me. I was like, whatever. Like, if Glen's dragging me, whatever. And of course, Glen being Glen, like, he knows everybody there. Everybody fucking loves him. There's like 30 tens, classic Southern California, like high caliber talent ladies. They're in spandex, a fucking sports bra, sweating their asses off. And of course, he puts us in the back, in the middle, and I was just
saying,
like, classic Glen, like, if you would have asked me, like, hey, you want to do this? Anybody else would have asked me to do that. I'd be like, fuck no, I'm not doing it. But it's like, dude, if Glen is saying, hey, come do this with me, like, it's going to be a good time. And it was awesome. And I hadn't done it since, but, it was cool. And, it's just, to me, that kind of, I think, summarizes just, like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If Glen's organizing it and dragging you along on something, like, you can guarantee it's going to be a good time no matter what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, hands down. I absolutely love that. Like, I went to so many hot yoga classes with him, and like, I'd never done yoga before Glen, and he's just like, oh, we're going to yoga. I mean, he would go to yoga classes, then go and do CrossFit classes, which is like the total opposite. He'd get all zenned out in some hot yoga class and just come in and jack a barbell. I'm just like, the fuck?
What are you doing?
Yeah, you're doing it in reverse order.
Yeah.
But it's more of a challenge, so enjoyed it that way. Plus, got a little fired up, look at all those yoga pants, and then go and lift some weights right afterwards. Get a little motivation there.
Yeah.
That is amazing because I know exactly where he took you. And I know exactly the studio, and that whole space, man. That's freaking great. All right, so if you're up for it, a couple rapid fire questions, easy ones, layups, if you will. First question: what was your first job?
I worked at a pancake house washing dishes. Village Inn in Waterloo, Iowa. It was just like a greasy spoon there.
They didn't let you flip flapjacks? You didn't graduate to that job? You just wash dishes?
I started to, and then the swim season started, so I stopped working there. Like, I started out washing dishes, and then I bussed tables, and they were going to have me start doing some cooking duties, and then it was time to I will say at that time, like, I was 16-year-old, metabolism through the roof, couldn't gain weight. And I, as a dishwasher, like, they'd push this big fucking car with shit all over it. The guy would eat, so much food off of the dishes, like bacon, French toast. I mean, like, dude, I
Oh, no
ate,
one ate this one.
yeah,
This sausage link
yeah,
is fine.
like bacon, yeah, anything that didn't have bite taken out of it, dude, I'm eating it. Like, I ate probably 9,000 calories per shift when I worked there. Like, I just ate everything.
That is fucking great. Oh, wait, listen, I was a Hobart technician at Snowbird, and I'd be lying if I didn't say some pieces of food would slide across, and you're like
Oh,
going to scrape a plate, and you're just like,
yeah, yeah.
that nugget is totally untouched. I'm in
I
on it.
mean, I don't want food to go to waste. Like,
No, you're an environmentalist, Mike.
oh,
That's
yeah,
what you
yeah.
do. You care. If that was your first job, what would you say is your dream job? Because you might
I'm
be
living
doing
it.
it.
I'm doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
at the risk of sounding like an asshole, if I won the lottery, I would do exactly what I do now. I would hire a few more people to do some of the things I enjoy a little less. But even that, I mean, okay, there's certain things that I just enjoy doing that are part of the process with dog training, or like even picking up dog shit. It's like a lot of people around here, like there's all these companies that come and pick up dog shit. Like I enjoy doing it. Not that I like dog shit, but I also, especially owning a dog food company, like I want to know that the consistency's there, that there's no crazy shit going on. And so, yeah, like when I pick it up, like I'm checking it out and making sure everything is usual and word digestive system, always, whatever. But
You got a vested interest there. I mean, literally
yeah,
having a dog food company, like it's funny, I akin that to mowing the lawn, right? Like there's lawn mowing services all up and down. I will never hire a lawnmower to mow my lawn and to maintain my space. Like that's my job. I love doing it. It's like a zen like state of doing that. At the same time, yeah, you got to pick up some dog shit in the front yard, and people are funny about that because I'll be like, oh, like my friend's dog will shit on the yard. I'm like, you need a bag, like, and they're kind of one off. I'm like, I'll take care of it. And they're like, you're gonna touch my dog's shit? I'm like, dude, I got a glove on, and like, I
yeah,
don't really care. It's just gonna go in my trash bin over here.
yeah,
I'm like, wow, man, like, I'm like, it's not that taboo, guys. We all got kids that are shitting all over the place. This is a
yeah.
lot easier.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, and it's not like that shit's any dirtier than your own. I mean, it's not yours, but it's the same amount of filth. But anyway, I mean, yeah, just like I do genuinely really enjoy what I do. But yeah, I mean, if I won, $400 million Powerball, like I'd still do what I do now,
Yeah.
and probably about as much as I do now.
Well, but you also have enough stimulation, right, between the foundation, the dog food company, training dogs, like actually being in the training world, and the podcast. I mean, the
Yeah,
podcast alone offers such an amazing amount of human interaction and storytelling, and just like it's just a wealth of knowledge waiting to happen.
yeah, for sure. I mean, at this point, it's worth doing financially, but even if it wasn't, I would still do it because I enjoy it. I really do.
Yeah.
And to me, there's a huge honor for me in the caliber of people that are willing to carve time out of their schedule and travel here and sit down and allow me to ask them whatever I want for as long as I want.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, like that's a big fucking deal to me. And I don't take it lightly. I put a lot of time into it. I do really, really enjoy it. And I also find it very fulfilling on the back end of the messages that I get from people that, certain episodes resonate with, or, one thing that a guest said that, changed their life or saved it even. I mean, I've gotten a lot of messages, from people like, oh, you had this guest on, you guys were talking about this, and I was in a really dark place, and I'm not ready to kill myself. It's something that one of your guests said, and, they'll quote it and then be like, that was a turning point catalyst for me, and now I'm here because of that. Just like
Holy
the
shit.
reality of that is hard to get your arms around, And so for me, I feel very honored to be in the position to even be able to do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge statement right there. And now that you've said something incredibly impactful like that, I'm going to totally switch gears on you and ask you the next question, which is I need you to rank three things. You're going to rank them from best to worst: salsa, queso, guacamole.
Best or worst, queso, salsa, guacamole.
It's written all over your face, man. Got you there. you handed me that. What's your Chipotle order? You go to Chipotle. What are you getting?
I'm everywhere. So,
Ever?
I mean, I'm
Okay.
trying to think. It's probably been at least 10 years since I've eaten there. And it's
They've
not that
cleaned
I
up
have.
their act.
Yeah.
They've cleaned up their act. They got
Well,
they got
I
some stuff.
don't even have a problem with them. It's that where I live and the places that I go, like I don't even know where there one is near here. Like I know that they exist. I think
Yeah.
Greenville, honestly, maybe.
They're hanging out in San Diego, man. They're on every freaking corner out here. I
Yeah,
imagine where you are. You have such authentic, proper Mexican that
yeah.
they're just not even gonna mess with that. They're like, we don't want to go there.
No, I mean, so this is probably going to sound crazy, but look, I either want like, dude barely speaks English taking my order, right? Authentic, or fucking Taco Bell. Like, not even food. Total, like, I'm shit faced, guilty pleasure. This is going to fuck me up as much as the drinking did, but I'm going to do it
Yes,
anyway.
this
You know,
is Long John Silver's for 2024.
fucking hate it is. You know, so yeah, I just don't eat there. I mean, like, I know what they have. I mean, if I was going to eat there, I'd probably get a bowl. You
Yep.
know, with like a mix of chicken, steak, guacamole, salsa, fucking, maybe some corn or what, I don't know. Like it would
Because
be
they
like,
don't have fucking queso there. Otherwise, that would have been on the top of the list.
yeah, well, I mean, fucking make your own microwave. Throw a bunch of cheese on there, put some salsa on, and microwave it. Or it's Texas, just set it on the hood of your car for 30 seconds.
You are in that time of year. You are in that time of year. Give me some hobbies, interest, anything that people don't ever see on social media from you, like stuff that you just do that people be like, oh shit, I would never know that.
Um, I mean, I talk about it, but jiu-jitsu and riding motorcycles, I don't post much about it or talk much about it. I talk a little bit about jiu-jitsu in the podcast and a little bit about life, but those two things, like if I have free time, that's what I'll do.
Got it.
100%. It's like,
That's
I
your
will.
training. Are you in the gym, like your garage gym and
Yeah.
all that stuff too?
Yeah. And so the way I'll usually kind of counter, I guess, is the days that I don't do jujitsu, I lift in my garage. And the days that I have, like I do a very specific morning routine that does involve some mobility stuff and some working out, some working
You
heavy
little
bag.
yoga?
No yoga. Even if it was, I would say that it's not. But just because it's fucking yoga, and I'm not wearing spandex, so I think like that is one prerequisite.
Wait,
But
this is what people don't see. So you could be running full spandex and no
yeah,
one's the wiser.
hot panties, fucking leg warmers, in my driveway doing yoga. Um, but yeah, so and I will say I do take a couple days off a week.
Yep.
It's usually Wednesday and Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I may hit an open mat with jujitsu or maybe do something active in the afternoon or something like that. But do you ride motorcycles at all? Or have you
No,
much? No.
no. I
I
mean,
mean,
I
I will say,
rode
like,
them for
yeah,
years and then I it was all like motocross, like off-road stuff. I never got into street bikes. I had like a Honda CR 500 or something like way back when, and that was the last time. Like,
yeah. So, like on a Saturday, I may go for a long ride, which isn't like a CrossFit workout physical, but it's fucking physical. It's for like, and even before I ever rode, I never really thought of riding a motorcycle as being an active, you know, activity. But it is. I mean, it's not like brutal, but if you go for, a couple hour ride, and especially if you're on a sport bike and pushing a car, it's pretty physical. So I'll do something like that and then maybe just fuck around in the gym, just kind of throwing a few sets together or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I organize my workouts and about the motorcycles. For me, I'm busy enough to where between the dogs and just, kids and everything else, like it's pretty difficult for me to travel from a vacation standpoint. Like if I have to travel
yeah,
for work and, whatever, that is what it is. Even that, I do way less traveling than I used to now on purpose. But so for me,
Well,
like
that's funny.
my
That's gonna be one of my questions was where do you go when you want to go? So like, what's a dream destination for you next?
um,
Which you might be there.
yeah, I mean, I would say Europe. I haven't spent a ton of time there. I want to really spend a lot of time in the Scandinavian countries because that's kind of all of my heritage is pretty heavy on the Viking side. And, so I like to spend some time there. I would like to go to Italy and hit. I do have if you want to call it a coupon, an invitation, an allowance or an allocation to go to the Ducati track, and it's called Mugello, and actually ride on the Ducati track. I want to go to the Ferrari Museum, the Ducati Museum, the plants. I love visit all that and spend some time in Italy, just doing the Italy
Kind
things.
of need to. It's funny. We're Heather and I are married 10 years this year, so we're planning our 10-year
Yeah,
anniversary. And we picked like, hey, let's go to Mexico to this one bougie hotel. Let's go back to Kauai and hike a volcano. Let's go here. Like we've just been spitballing ideas, but the one that keeps sticking out is let's fly to Rome, go to Naples, hike Mount Vesuvius, go to the Amalfi Coast. Like just
hang out with the Pope because
he wants to hang out. We're
you're such
easy.
a Catholic religious bastard.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know me.
Yeah. Yeah, so
That
for me, my youngest is just this summer as of today. For her, she has 1 year of high school left, and so for the last handful of years, that's just kind of been my MO is like hey, maximize time with the kids. Once number two is graduated and out of the nest, then I'll do some fucking traveling, and
yeah.
I'll probably take her with me on some of it. But I just, like I didn't want to, like, because for me, like, if I'm going to go there or when I'm going to go there, I want it to be relatively or completely unrestricted. Like, I don't want time to be a factor. I don't want cost to be a factor. I want no limitations. I want the experience of a lifetime, and however long I have to wait until that's possible,
Yeah.
I'll wait,
Yeah, it might
because
be a
like
couple
I want,
years with all the business stuff and everything that's
yeah,
happening, but you're stacking chips in the meantime and making sure that when
yeah,
that happens, you can meet all those criteria, and that's a great way of approaching it. And look,
yeah.
it's not like there's no travel in the meantime. There's always there's always something.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah. So for me, like until that's a reality, for me, I take mini vacations every day for 20 or 30 minutes when I jump on a motorcycle. Like for me,
Yeah.
that's what it is, and it's similar to jujitsu in that it's like an active form of meditation because in jujitsu everything else goes away and you're focused on keeping somebody from strangling you, and that's all you're focused on. So you're not thinking about anything else.
Right.
On a motorcycle, it's the same thing. It's like, if you're on that bike, it's like your eyeballs are scanning in front of you and you're thinking about your body position, you're thinking about the wind, you're thinking about traffic, you're thinking about, shifting and braking and leaning and, curves coming up, obstacles coming, whatever. And so like you're not thinking of anything else. And I find both satisfaction and from a mental health standpoint, a lot of benefit in both of those activities for that reason. Like I'm not big on meditating in terms of sitting there and meditating. I much prefer active meditation, which to me I consider oppose that activity. So
Well, there's meditation that's like a bunch of woo-woo stuff where you think, oh, transcendental, like you're going to close your eyes and go to the ethereal plane, and like,
yes,
are you doing that? Or are you just taking a nap?
yeah,
I talk about it a lot because I meditate every single morning, but it's an active type of meditation called Zazen. It's like 10 minutes sitting in a kneeling position, but you're like your eyes are open, like you're focusing on a specific area, and not to get all into it, but it's like it's a way to clear your head and clear your mind,
yeah.
and you're not to not focus on anything else. So if you're on a motorcycle,
It's kind of the same thing, and that's why I enjoy it. I mean, my understanding of meditation, I have done it is yeah, it's that. And so to me, like any activity that you can do, and there's a lot of them, where you have to have a singular focus and think about absolutely nothing else except one thing,
yeah,
I think is beneficial, and for me, I love jiu-jitsu and writing. And so to me, it's kind of not too early on sound. I know, the mental balancing out that I get from all of those activities is significant. And I
Yeah.
also very, very easily recognize the absence of doing those and the role that it plays, the impact that it has on me. And that's how I know it's beneficial, is that if I'm not doing it, I know I start to fucking go down, and like
Yeah.
I need that kind of, you think like a pressure cooker, it's like that relief valve. I'm blowing fucking steam off with both of those things. So
I completely resemble that. And that's fitness for me. That's all those little things that you just need to just keep certain buckets full. You want that bucket full. You don't empty another bucket to make that bucket full. You're always finding balance in there. But yeah, that's a big one. And it's funny because that ties into one of the other questions was, what are you doing to relax? And that's obviously a key part of it. Um,
well, yeah, I mean, for me, I'm on the relaxed side. There is a very different component. I mean, I don't consider relaxing. Um, but I don't go out ever. I mean, I love going to movies. That's the one kind of going out thing
okay.
that I've always loved, taking the kids to. And I mean, I remember we saw Endgame together. Oh, Shane, like Miss you, CJ, Shane, and I, and almost getting into a fight afterwards. But
That's right.
yeah, Shane running his fucking mouth almost gets us into a fight with somebody else. Anyway, but that's what, for me, it's like if I do have free time and I'm not doing jiu-jitsu or writing, and I just want to fucking relax, like for me, it's take a shower, crank the fucking AC down to where I want to be in sweatpants and a fucking sweatshirt. Like it's that cold in my house. Putting, like either fucking The Office or, something that I enjoy watching on TV, ordering food and just fucking sitting there and being talking about. Like to me, that is my ideal relax time for sure.
Hell yeah.
Like
Yeah. I mean, you're right. Going back to like the meditation, motorcycle riding, jujitsu, like those active things that you can do to kind of keep your head in check is not your relaxation. Relaxation comes as a result of being able to do that and move to that place because you've managed yourself
yeah,
in these other areas.
yeah, it's like there's life. I do those things to clear my mind, and then I wind down with food and The Office usually.
Yeah,
But,
that's awesome. One last one for you. Um, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? Like something you would just share with folks?
um, I mean, I would say it's a life piece of advice, and I've gotten it from so many different people that I would consider it, the single best piece of advice that I've gotten and that I give people, which is, and it probably sounds very cliche, especially coming from the SEAL community and maybe, overdone or oversimplified, but just fucking never ever giving up ever. Like, no matter what, like have your goals and do not allow anything to stop you from achieving them. I've been very fortunate in selling personal protection dogs to high net worth folks over the last 15 years. Some of these individuals are household names, whether they're entertainers, whether they're CFOs of multi-billion dollar corporations, you name it. But the common denominator that they all have is obviously that they're supremely successful. And number two is that they all have that same piece of advice, is that the difference between me and any other guy like me that didn't make it and now is working for somebody else for 90 grand a year is that he fucking quit and I didn't. And that's it. Guys that,
Yeah.
are billionaires now that have been bankrupt 7 times, been divorced twice, that fucking had nothing and had to, put their power bill on a fucking credit card with 0% interest and moving it to another card to avoid interest, borrowing money from family, like it all just had, their legs swept out from under them over and over and over and over and just never fucking stopped trying to become successful. I mean, every one of them has stories that you're just like, dude, most people would have fucking quit way before,
Yeah.
way before, and they just never did. And to me, that's the thing is like, just never give up, no matter what. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you get cancer. your fucking wife leaves you and was banging your best friend and the kids prefer him over you. I mean, I don't give a shit how bad your life is. Like, just no matter what, fucking pick yourself up and fucking dive headfirst into going forward.
Never quit.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's too simple, but
No, but there's layers and layers to it, because anyone could listen to that and say, well, what about this? What about this? Fact is, like, well, yeah, but what if you don't quit?
yeah, it's like because and that's whether like that's a recurring thing in jiu-jitsu of whether or not to train or not, and it's like 10 years from now, right? It's going to be 10 years from now. Okay. That 10 years is going to happen whether you do everything or you do nothing.
Yeah.
So if you start training 10 years from now, you'll probably be a black belt and you're going to be a bad motherfucker. Right.
Yeah.
If you
But if you
don't,
don't train,
10 years is going to go by and you're going to be like, fuck, if I had done that when I thought about it, I'd be a bad motherfucker right now. Instead, I'm on blood pressure meds and I can't get laid, so fucking pick one. It's like, now is the time. I don't care what the thing is. Just do it and don't fucking quit.
yeah, hands down. It's actually it's funny you say that, because there's always these, like, I've been reading a couple books about like different goals to set, and Michael Easter is a guy I've gotten to know a little bit, and he started talking about doing misogis. He's like, don't die, but go do something that really challenges yourself, that you might not make it. You just might not succeed. It's like, not don't quit, but he's like, but challenge yourself, push yourself to that farthest spot that you can, and like get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what we're designed for.
Yeah.
And the idea of not quitting is like, well, that's what you need, a mindset about not quitting to even get to that space where you can challenge yourself. I like that.
Yeah, and human beings are designed to have some struggle. The people who are the most miserable are generally people with the easiest fucking life. It makes them depressed because there's no challenge. Which ultimately ends up being there's no real purpose or fulfillment because everything's fucking handed to them, or like there's nothing for them to have to overcome.
Right.
And that's cool for about 2 weeks, and then it's fucking boring, and then it's dangerous. So
Yep. That's when sabotage can roll right on in there. So don't
yeah.
quit. Good stuff. So Mike, thank you for joining us today. And if people want to learn more about you and what you're up to, the fourth best-selling book pending, where can we take them to?
I don't think I doubt that I'll write anything else. But, I did it. I enjoyed it. I don't see myself doing that. I mean, never say never, but
Yeah,
I doubt that you'll see publications coming from me. But
you saving that for Clint. He's got a few more chambered up.
for sure, yeah. I mean, if I can change to write a book, but
Yes, he should.
I don't know if the world will have changed writing a book, but which is why he should
You
write.
have a fourth book that didn't make it to the New York Times bestseller list that I've been wanting to talk to you about for ages. So, I feel like he'd be right there in that category.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's good stuff. So literally on social media, just at Mike Ritland.
Yeah, well, it's at M Ritland, and that's everything basically. But I mean, if you just fucking Google my name, a lot of stuff will come up. I mean, if you go to teambug.pet, that's where all the training and food and treats and stuff is at. WarriorDogFoundation.org for the foundation and supporting that. And then catch that and Ritland with Mike Ritland on any social media platform will land you on.
Wherever on Instagram folks are going to be are tracking and following it. This has been awesome. So as always, folks, thank you for listening. And Mike, thank you for being here.
I appreciate you having me. One last thing, I did start a Patreon page that does give people a lot of kind of, the things that you didn't know I do, and it's kind of more of an inside look as, there's a lot of behind the scenes podcast stuff and, extra conversations that we have in the studio, outside of the studio, as well as just kind of some of the day-to-day shit that I have going on, if you want. But that Patreon link is on, the YouTube channel, every other. You can find it from any other social media platform.
Hands down. I actually didn't know you had that. And that is freaking rad, because like you see what the shows you have, whether it's 2 hours or 4 hours long,
Yeah.
but the idea of like, oh no, there's more, and this is where we talk about a bunch of fucking whatever, or hey, we're gonna go do a workout over here, or just grab an extra stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like, if I had jiu-jitsu guys on, like, we'll train and show you some of that, or guys that are in the cars or bikes, do some of that mess around. Or yeah, like if it's something that's maybe a little, it's not something that they would want on a normal podcast, but they want to talk about it. Then if it's behind that paywall, then that kind of helps people open up a little bit to shit that maybe they didn't want to talk about. But
Nice.
yeah,
And maybe it's
I mean, to me, the stuff that I put on there is what most people put on Instagram for free.
right.
But I'm a more private person than a lot of people, I think, and I like to keep that kind of show you that, like I kind of like to know who you are, and you have to
Yep.
sign up and actually, have access to that. And
Well, it's a little
yeah,
bit of an exchange of values there, right? And like,
yeah,
hey,
well,
who are you? What are you doing? And like, you're gonna know quick if they start asking you like wacky questions. You'd be like, I don't need you in here. But the
yeah,
right
like
folks that
yeah,
really
I mean, it's
appreciate it.
yeah, it's I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it's way harder to be an anonymous troll on Patreon because like you've got to use a credit card. Like they have a process of even signing up that just to a certain level makes you identify yourself. And so there's that component of it, but there's another component of just like that kind of Kardashian self-importance that it's like, oh, here's what I'm eating for breakfast, and here's the shit that I took, and this is my workout. It's like, fuck, man, like, do that many people really give a shit what you had for breakfast? Maybe they do, but for me, like, I'm not gonna just diarrhea all over my Instagram feed with my
No,
entire life like it's a reality show, and so if I'm going to offer, any type of insight into my life on a personal level, like it's going to be on a smaller platform where, it's a more kind of intimate exchange between myself and the guests. Like I do a monthly call with them. I did one just a couple of days ago, and that's
so
cool. It's
anyone
like,
who's in the Patreon kind of jumps on a call,
yeah,
and
so
they have
yes,
the ability to zoom in and have a conversation.
yeah. So we jump on a Zoom, and it's there's 3 tiers. It's for only the tier 3 members, but yeah, if you're a tier 3 member, you get a Zoom invite. We jump on a Zoom call, and now like you guys get to ask me whatever you want, whether it's dog training advice, whether it's podcast stuff, whether and to me that's cool. It's like you get to see and meet fans and supporters of the show, and you give them a chance to fucking ask me whatever they want, and I like that,
Yeah,
I wouldn't
that's
want to do that on Instagram with, hundreds of thousands of people in a live stream. Like I want a much smaller group of people that you can actually kind of interact with, so
yeah. Well, it's disposable on one way. I mean, you and I did that Instagram live together. We've done two actually.
yeah.
And that was kind of the tool at the time. Like, I didn't know to have a podcast. You had yours. And I was like, hey, this is social media. Let's just have a conversation. But the nice thing about that conversation is it's kind of gone. You're in the moment
Yeah,
for that. What I love about what you're doing is that you have the podcast and it's going to live on, in perpetuity. And then, till the cloud goes away. And then you've got this kind of extra level of access and extra level of like, hey, Mike, like I want to ask you some questions, and like I'm actually invested enough not to just demand or expect an anonymous reply in your Instagram DMs. I'm going to pay in to learn more, educate myself, and then if I still have questions, boy, I get this access point to you to put it out there. That's great.
yeah, I enjoy it, and but yeah, I think it's just kind of a win-win. It's better for the people that want to sign up that are serious about it. And I don't feel like I'm wasting my fucking time and blowing my own horn, so
Yeah, that is kind of one of the things on Instagram is it's
yeah.
kind of an inevitability of
Yeah,
that.
like I just feel like a pompous fuck, like going live and telling people about my day, or I'm going to share my opinion. Not like who gives a fuck, like I don't know. I just like it's just not my gig. I mean,
No,
I've tried it a few times, and I'm just like, this is fucking down. I'll do it. So
no, it's funny. I see you on social media for pretty much who's the guest this week, who are you talking with,
Yeah.
and it's a great snapshot of what that's going to look like. And like it just hooks me into say like, okay, cool, I'm going to go listen to this episode.
And that's about it. I'm not trying to, see how fast I can get to 1 million followers or, trying to get so many fucking likes a week or whatever. I just have better shit to worry about, and
Yeah.
so, the Patreon thing is a nice happy medium where for the people that really want to see that kind of stuff, they can. But I'm not fucking wasting my time doing it and feeling like an arrogant prick in the process.
Yeah, it's selling yourself out a little bit instead. It's has a whole different experience to it. That's good stuff. I like that. Well, on that note, check out Mike's Patreon page. And as always, thanks for listening. You can find the Cult of Recreationalism on all your podcasting services. And don't forget to check us out on YouTube on that social media thing. Just look us up at Bub's Naturals and you're going to find us. And you can leave a thumbs up. You can leave a review. You can do all the things. And thank you.